Hi, I'm Mike. I'm a senior technician here at ABI. Today we're going to go over troubleshooting your electric actuator. Now today we're using an electric actuator that's actually the one for the Rascal unit, but whether you have a Workman XL or a Rascal, the checking the system is all the same for either unit. Now all you need is a cheap test light. You can get it at your local auto parts store or wherever you prefer to shop for $5 to $10. They're not that much. You don't have to buy a big high grade one for this test. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to hook the ground area up. Today I'm just clipping it on the ground of the battery. And the first thing I'll check is, does my battery have power? And yes, it does. Next thing I'm going to check, are all my terminals tight? If you can move the terminals, they're not tight. Be careful when moving them though. Grab the clamp end, don't grab the wire piece. You want to grab towards the clamp more so that you don't pull it out. Are they corroded? If they're corroded, we need to clean them, put the bolts back in, and then we go down the line. The first thing you'll see is an inline fuse. If you notice, when you test the fuse, this side shows we do have current coming in. Test the next side of the fuse, we show now that we have current coming out. Okay, so now that we know that works, we're going to go to our rocker switch, and we're going to unplug our rocker switch. Verify that we have current coming in. Now, if you notice the bottom hole out of the three, or center one, that one is your incoming. The other two will never light up. Those only actuate when you hit the rocker switch to make it work. So after we know we've got current coming in, we're going to plug back in our rocker switch. Make sure we plug it in as tight as possible, and those gaps showing so it can't get water or anything in there. And then, now I can cheat because I can move this closer to me where you're not going to be able to do that, so it might take two people to run the switch. Okay, now we're going to check at the back of the tow vehicle. This is where the wiring goes from the tow vehicle to the control box. What you're going to do, you're going to unplug it. Now if you notice on the side, the black wire comes in on the side. That one is always hot. So when you put that one in, that one's going to show that you have power at all times. And then your other ones, you're going to have to use your rocker switch, and it'll probably take two people to do this because it'll be too far away. Try it one way then the other. Okay, we know we've got one direction. Now we're going to test the other side. Okay, so we know we have our rocker switch is throwing current for the up and down position both, and you might have an extension added to this. So after you check here, and if you have an extension wire, you need to check it at the end of your extension also, just to verify there's not a broken wire there. Once you have this plugged in, again you'll have another fuse located in the control box. We also send you a complimentary replacement fuse in there, so if either one of your fuses blow, you can get this out of the control box. After you've checked that the same way we checked the fuse earlier, then what you're going to do is you're going to go to your wire that hooks up to your electric actuator. So now you're going to do it just like we checked before. You're going to take your rocker switch, and again this will probably take two people. Okay, we know we've got it going one direction. Now we're going to test the other direction. Okay, so we know we're successful. Now we know that our wiring system through the control box is all correct. So next, if all that is correct, now we're going to go to the electric actuator. Now to do this, you can use different items. You can actually use a battery charger, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be hooking one, either your positive or negative, to the male end, and then if you're using a battery charger or jumper cables, on the other end to reach inside the female, you're going to want to use like a nail or a screw in the one clamp. But today I have some little jumper wires with alligator clips on each end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook one to the positive of the battery and one to the negative of the battery. Now I'm going to come down. This one's it doesn't matter which one you hook up which, the motor itself works on reverse polarity. So basically you put the negative on this one, the positive on this one, it goes one direction. You reverse them, it goes the opposite direction. So now I got I know it works that direction. So now I'm going to switch my wires around, verify that I'm working in both directions. Okay, we heard it's working in both directions, so we know we don't have a problem there. Okay, now we've tested, we know everything is working on our electrical. Let's say you just have a clicking noise when you're running it. A lot of times it can be this motor has a limit switch in it. To reset the limit switch, you'll turn the screw jack, all the way in as far as it'll go. Once it stops, then you're going to want to turn it 3 complete turns. So 1, 2, 3. Now we've got it 3 complete turns. That reset our limit switch, because otherwise what happens if that limit switch is set wrong, the jack runs all the way down and then it bottoms out and gets stuck, so it's making a clicking noise because it's not going to let it release from that point. Alright, now after we've set our limit switch, if we still just have a clicking noise, you'll have 3 bolts that hold the jack down to the motor. What you're going to do, you're going to take a 10mm socket or wrench, and you're going to remove all 3 of the bolts around the unit. Right, now after we've reset our limit switch, if it's still making a clicking, we've removed our bolts. Now we're going to pull this out. If you notice, if you look inside here, there's a rod that goes through there. That rod matches up in these slots, and it's what causes this to turn. So if that shear pin happened to break, and the shear pin is in there purposely so that it will break before it ruins your jack if you hit something hard while you're moving it. And if that's broke, you can go down to your local hardware store. You can buy rod. It's a 3/16 rod. I purchased this one locally at a hardware store, and it was between $2 and $4. And then you're going to cut it at 5/8 of an inch long. And then to do this, you'll notice that there is a hole in the side of the motor. You're going to actually have to run the motor so that the shear pin here lines up with the hole so that you can run it in through the outer hole and through this. So you just hit the button on it, move it one way or the other until it lines up, and then put your shear pin through the hole, line it up in here, and after you've got that done, you'll line the bottom notches. You'll want to look to make sure that they're going to line up with your shear pin. Put it back in and reinstall your 3 bolts. Tighten them down good, and you're ready to go.